Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. Good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Wednesday, 1st of November 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island with sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person this evening. High demand, recruitment issues and some improvement at Manx Care. The railway report will be along soon. We don't know when though. Still no date for the new Castle Russian High School. A board member says the Southern Pool is falling apart. And the Manx Language Festival, the Cooish, began today.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fast am I, Lewis Foster.
Fast am I. The chair of a review into government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has hit back at the island's former medical director, saying her work is robust and independent. Kate Brunner KC has responded to Dr. Rosalind Ranson's comments that the review is a sham and won't be able to uncover the truth. Dr. Ranson's views were published in a letter from the British Medical Association today. Manx Care's CEO says waiting list times are beginning to improve. In September, it was revealed more than 12,300 people were waiting for a first appointment at Nobles Hospital. Last year, the Department of Health and Social Care asked Tynwald for an extra £18.3 million to help reduce them. And police will increase patrols in the lead up to bonfire night to try and deter troublemakers. Officers say there were a small number of individuals who used last night's Hopchinay celebrations to act in an antisocial manner. In the international news, dozens of injured people have been evacuated from Gaza, along with more than 300 foreign nationals. It's unclear if any Britons are among those to cross the border into Egypt. A former top UK civil servant told the COVID inquiry of Boris Johnson's breezy optimism about the pandemic and Matt Hancock's nuclear levels of confidence. Helen McNamara has also been questioned about lockdown gatherings, telling the hearing she couldn't remember one day when regulations had been properly observed at Downing Street. And a library in London's been closed after bedbugs were spotted in furniture there. Pest control teams were sent and Ealing Central Library is expected to reopen tomorrow. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Jeremiah, thank you, Lewis. From the Ronaldsway Met Office, there is a strong wind warning and a gale warning for tomorrow. The sea state moderate, rough tomorrow and dry. The weather after dark, dry, but then some rain towards dawn at the end of the night, coming in on a fresh to strong northeast wind down to 7 degrees. For Jardine, Thursday will be showery. Some of the showers heavy at times on the strong northerly. Top temperature 10 Celsius. Light and patchy rain late evening. Overnight minimum 9 into Jehenya. Dry on Friday with sunny spells in a fresh to strong northwesterly. Daylight maximum 12. The sun set almost 15 minutes ago. Low water is at 12 minutes before 8. High tide 20 to 2 a.m. Sunrise 20 past 7. Low water is at 2 minutes past 8. The matrix signs towards the mountain at Sulby, Vigaro, Hilbury and Albert Road are showing fog or fog patches on the mountain road.
Visit the Manx Glass and Glazing website and see a range of products from windows to doors, mirrors to splashbacks. manxglass.com.
Waiting list times are beginning to improve in some Manx Care departments, but others are still experiencing high demand and recruitment issues, according to the Chief Exec of Manx Care, Teresa Cope, after it was revealed in September more than 12,300 people were waiting for a first appointment at Nobles Hospital. She's been speaking to Manx Radio.
The waiting lists are generally moving in a positive direction. So, it is very much dependent on specialties. Some specialties have a very high demand. and need extra investment in order to respond to that. Some we've got a very clear plan for. We've talked a lot about ophthalmology, and we inherited a waiting list for ophthalmology of cataract surgery of over 3,000. That waiting list is now below 300, and that is now business as usual. So it is much more stable than what it was in the past. Overall, we've delivered 3,000 extra procedures. Orthopaedics has reduced its waiting list by 40%, 740 radiological scans. So those are the sorts of things that we're seeing. So we're generally seeing a reduction in many of the waiting lists, but we are seeing some very high demand in some of our areas.
Have you got any update on skin cancer?
We work really hard with the dermatology team and the plastics team up at Ramsey. It's an excellent service. The CQC assessed that service and identified it was an exemplary, outstanding service. It's a very, very high demand service. There's a very high number of referrals that come through the 2-week wait service. We've currently got a visiting dermatologist and a very experienced team of clinical nurse specialists. It is one of the areas that we have struggled to recruit to a consultant. There are only 2 specialties where we have not been able to recruit substantively to consultant posts, and dermatology is one and gastroenterology is the other. But we are working on a plan. We've also got the GPs with special interests. So these are the GPs we started training 2 years ago in order to undertake dermatology work. So the service does perform extremely well, but it is a very high volume, high demand service.
The Infrastructure Minister says he'll publish a report reviewing the Isle of Man railways as soon as possible, but he wouldn't be pressed for a date. Tim Crookall MHK was quizzed by the Garth MHK Daphne Kane in the House of Keys.
The Department does not have the finalised report yet, and it will need to be reviewed by the Department prior to publication, but we fully intend to publish as soon as we can. There may need to be a redaction for some commercially sensitive information or to clarify some of the detail prior to publication. I do appreciate how much this review is anticipated, so the intention is to make it publicly available as quickly as possible.
Could the Minister confirm whether he has seen an early draft of the report and whether any changes were requested by the Department? And also, given the Chief Minister's statement to us, honourable members, in another place in July, that reform pathways had been identified for the airport, housing and heritage railways, are the Department trying to get SISTRA to deliver a report that chimes, coincides and supports whatever future the Department has in mind for heritage railways?
The report is the report, and we're not trying to change anything. With regard to changing it to suit the Department, I absolutely refute that. And I say we will use the report. We commissioned this report and we will absolutely use it for the best intentions. Having been through the draft report and we have the proper report as we want it to be delivered, it will be done. If you let me finish, we will deliver it just about as it is. There will be very, very few changes to it. It is literally just punctuation and grammar and things like that.
Putting in the odd knot.
Right, now, final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, can I just take the honourable member to challenge there? He made some comment there which I didn't hear, but I don't think was political.
I'm afraid I didn't hear it either. Final supplementary.
Very disingenuous.
Can he confirm the cost of the report when it is published, and also can you tell us what period the report is covering?
Mr. Speaker, the cost of the report, I will happily give that once we have it from the consultants, and as for the finish date, I'm not sure exactly what that finish date was. I think it was just before my arrival at the department, but I'm not sure on that date.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Faster my 21 minutes now before 6. This Wednesday evening, the Education Minister insists her department hasn't put plans for the Newcastle Russian High School building on the back burner. Julie Edge MHK's been telling us that they have to make sure the plans that they make now are fit for the future.
We've secured funding from Treasury for 3.3 million, and certainly we're seeing progress, and we haven't seen that for a number of years. So I think we have moved forward, but what we need to make sure is that we are building a future-proofing a school in the south of the island, and not just building a school because somebody wants it in this administration. We need to make sure that whole site is looked at and that we come forward with the right plan for a school in the south of the island, and that it's there and fit for purpose for the future, with adaptable building structures, because education's changing. We know, coming along with AI is changing rapidly, and that's going to change the way things happen within an education setting as well, and examinations and things. So we need to build that school that's sustainable for the future.
Remind listeners why the existing school needs to be replaced.
There's not been a lot of investment on maintenance because there was an expectation of a new school, and I find that's really quite a big issue, because if we continue maintaining the buildings still stay fit for purpose, and we are having to invest money in Castlebush and still to make sure it's fit for purpose for our students to be in school. I think what my aim definitely, and I'm doing it for the whole of the education estate, is we should have a strategy of school replacement programme going forward. It takes time to get these delivered, and there's an actual process that you have to go through, and even just the design stage can take months, if not years, and to get a full architectural drawing and into planning. So it's a process that has to be followed. It's under our laws, and we have to procure this correctly. But we are moving forward now to get that project management unit involved. We're at stage D1, so that's the design stage, and we'll come up with a project board.
The Isle of Man's Manx Language Festival began today. Cooish is held annually. So is it just for fluent Manx speakers? Here's Culture Vannin's Ruth Kegan-Gell.
So many adults who speak Manx have learned as adults as well. Obviously Manx medium education has been available for, with the Bunscoil being about 21 years old now. So actually a lot of the adults you find have usually learned sort of as an adult. So they know what it's like to be a beginner, and they're very supportive, and they'll think, give it a go. But even if you don't already have any Manx, you can get involved with the Cooish, because there's things for absolute beginners to take part in as well. So there's all sorts of things, whether you're just curious about Manx or whether you're a fluent speaker and you've been speaking for years. There's something for you out there. So we've got 21 events across the island over the 5 days, and there's things from very, very fun and informal events through to talks and workshops and lessons. I mean, those will also be fun, I should add as well. But, some things that are definitely more sociable, I suppose, and other things where are more learning opportunities. So there are a few different classes, for example, so things like Come and Try Manx, which is taking place at the Santander Work Cafe in Market Hall in Douglas. We've got 2 of those, quite limited space, about 15 people per workshop. So good to get your name down for those, and you can do that by going to workcafe.im/events and easily get your name down there. Other things I think might sell out if you don't sign up is things like a Fastafanoddery, which is on the Saturday the 4th of November, which is a cocktail making workshop through Manx. So if you've got a good level of Manx, that's something for you. But there's all sorts of things to come along too.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Sinead Manxman, the motor vessel Manxman, departed Heysham at 6 minutes before 3. She'll be into Douglas in the next 35 minutes or so. Now, tonight's 7 o'clock Manxman departure from Douglas for operational reasons has been rescheduled. Will now go at 8:30. You're asked to check in by 8 o'clock. Arriving in Heysham, going to be at least just before midnight for that. The overnight departure from Lancashire, 2:15 a.m. back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. And tomorrow morning, motor vessel Manxman departs Douglas for Heysham at 9:30.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
A board member of the Southern Pool says the facility is falling apart in front of them. While a strategic plan for a regional sports hub is delayed, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture and Infrastructure were meant to deliver the plan by October, but, it hasn't happened. Lawrence Vaughan-Williams from the Southern Swimming Pool Board says this is unfortunate.
The swimming pool is well past its sell-by date. Planning for the future is very, very difficult. Where you have dwindling investment, you get a downturn in the people who want to use the facilities, and if you're not careful, that leads to a lowering in staff morale. Now, what plans can the board make in relation to a pool which is in dire need of replacement. What I would like to see, obviously, is a new pool, new facilities, and to be able to offer the public in the south of the island what they get in the other areas. Why should they not have the same quality of facilities as can be found elsewhere in the island? And the answer is there is no viable reason except for the inherent delay, the cumulative delay over many years. You have people who have been quite successful in running a new pool with new facilities, and they say, why should we have any interference? Why should we cede our independence? That isn't the case in the south. We have a clapped out pool, clapped out facilities. On occasion we have tiles falling off the walls. We are literally in a sort of make do and mend situation. Now, if our costs could be reduced by centralisation, if we could plan ahead, if we knew there was a new pool coming, all of these things would be very helpful to us. And I have to say, at my meetings with the Minister, the will is there. What isn't there are the bricks and mortar.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 14 minutes before 6, the world's largest offshore wind developer, Ørsted, has abandoned 2 US projects and announced a higher than expected write-down of its portfolio in a big blow to American efforts to develop the renewable energy. Shares in Ørsted plunged 26% today after the group recorded 28.4 billion kroner of impairments. That's about $4 billion, saying it had no choice but to stop work on 2 projects off the coast of New Jersey. The US offshore wind industry was fundamentally broken, says Anja Isabel Durtenrath, the BP head of low-carbon energy. She said that in a Financial Times conference on Wednesday, warning that a fundamental reset was needed to help the nascent market grow. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Something spectacular is happening in the Portuguese technology sector. It's been happening since 2010. Portugal has become enormously competitive in the international market as foreign founders started considering Portugal as their future home, bringing know-how, creating innovation centres, investing in the local industry and building co-working spaces. Why? Well, as well as that long sunny coastline, overseas tech workers and entrepreneurs have been attracted to Portugal by generous tax policies. Under the non-habitual resident, the NHR statute, foreign individuals pay a fixed rate of 20% on their income for 10 years. By comparison, for Portuguese nationals, income tax ranges from 15 to 48%. In parallel were the so-called golden visas, through which a foreigner could trade an investment for a Portuguese passport. Together, the programs helped attract thousands of professionals and retirees to Portugal. According to data from the country's Court of Auditors, 74,258 individuals were living in Portugal under this regime in 2022, up from the previous year by 28%.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets higher, with investors awaiting the next interest rate decision from the Fed in America. The battered yen recovered. Oil edged higher ahead of key meetings of global central banks, and gold was flat of the Fed Reserve's policy decision. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall. At the close in London, the FTSE 100 was up almost 0.3% at 7,342. In Frankfurt, the DAX closed up 0.75% at 14,923. A short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial up just over 0.1% at 33,102. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up 0.6% at 12,931. The S&P 500 in Chicago up 0.4% at 4,210. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 21.2 cents, €1 15 cents. And in commodities, gold's down 0.25% at $1,977 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up just over 0.1% at $85.70.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
A new multi-agency approach to tackling drug crime and the exploitation of children appears to be working well and having a positive impact, but it's up for review. So says the Justice and Home Affairs Minister, Jane Paul Wilson, MHK, who's been updating the House of Keys on the latest from the constabulary.
In relation to the exploitation of children, the recent creation of the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, or the MASH, has been put in place to supersede Operation Yarrow and specifically target issues such as the exploitation of children. The MASH allows a number of different agencies, including the constabulary, to work together in a collaborative approach to safeguarding. Cases of exploitation of children are complex, and as such the police cannot tackle these alone. Hence why the MASH is so vital, as it supports a multi-agency approach in which the police play an important part. As part of the MASH, there are daily meetings whereby multi-agency partners identify children who may be vulnerable to exploitation and put plans in place to collectively protect them. It also allows for information to be gathered on those responsible for the exploitation so that law enforcement can actively target those involved. At this time, the MASH appears to be working well and having a positive impact. However, a formal review will be completed in due course in order to quantify the impact. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to reiterate that tackling drug crime, particularly the harm caused by it, and preventing the exploitation of children are priorities for the constabulary, and the department is committed to supporting efforts in these areas.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates. Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. Isle of Man-born professional tennis player Billy Harris is set to feature in a new documentary series.
What goes into every top tennis player?
Lots of pressure and loads of expectation.
Before they even reach the top 100 or 200.
Once you feel like you can mentally compete, you're almost halfway there.
What does it take to become the best?
Beyond the Baseline is a new series from the Lawn Tennis Association, following some of the best and most promising tennis players in Britain. It follows the journeys of 10 up-and-coming Great Britain prospects and some of the challenging realities of being a professional tennis player. In hockey, Valkyrie suffered their first defeat of the mixed Premier League season last night as they went down 3-2 to nearest challengers Vikings A. Goals from Scott Mason, Will Brightson and Kim Carney were enough to hand Vikings victory, with their Western opponents finding the net through Luis Novo-Smith and Ollie Webster. The result means Vikings A now move level with Valkyrie at the top of the Premier League standings, with both on 12 points, with Vikings ahead on goal difference and head-to-head. Tonight in the top flight, Castletown Celts face reigning champions Backers A at 8:30 tonight at the NSC in Douglas. In football, FC Isle of Man has announced several updates to its NWCFL Premier Division fixtures in December and into January 2024. The Ravens' home tie against Ramsbottom United, previously scheduled for Saturday the 11th of November, will now be played on Saturday the 16th of December. Meanwhile, the Manx side's away fixture at newly promoted Chatterton will now be held at the Falcon Fire Stadium at 7:45pm on Wednesday the 27th of December, having originally been penned in for Boxing Day. Elsewhere, FC Isle of Man's first game of 2024 will see them host Charnock Richard on Saturday the 6th of January at 6pm at the Bowl. And also in football, two more fixtures await tonight on Ireland in the Isle of Man Under-18s League at the Bowl. At 6:15, Colby face Jims, with both teams still searching for their first points of the latest campaign, while second place Braddon face fourth place Russian straight after at 8pm.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Some delays at Ronaldsway tonight. The 5:25 Loganair from Manchester won't be in till 6:25. 7:30 EasyJet from Gatwick's on time. The 10 to 8 Loganair from London City delayed for an hour till 10 to 9. And the 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool, returning patient transfer, delayed until 8:45. Outbound tonight, 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, delayed until 7. And the 8 o'clock EasyJet back to London Gatwick, showing on time. Newcastle Town Road still closed between Spring Valley roundabout, the bottom of Richmond Hill outside Douglas. In Derby, a closure of the section of Bretney Close for some construction work continues. Temporary lights in Port St Mary at the junction of Queen's Road and Park Road for gas main work. In Castletown, Queen Street's closed for resurfacing work. Temporary lights on Peveril Road, Peel for resurfacing. Hillside Avenue closed in Douglas through till Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement, and temporary lights on Glen Crutchery Road at the roundabout for Victoria Road. In Laxey, Old Laxey Hill is closed for excavation work.
H&H Motorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646. Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
The Isle of Man's former medical director won't be taking part in the ongoing review into the Isle of Man government's handling of the COVID-19 situation because she says it's a sham. The British Medical Association's written to the Chief Minister, Mr. Cannon, to highlight its concerns over the ongoing reviews into the pandemic and its handling of Dr. Rosalind Ranson's employment tribunal. Here's Sean Cowper.
Chair of Council, Professor Philip Banfield, writes that the BMA isn't satisfied that Richard Wright KC's review into the whistleblower's case will be able to uncover the truth and hold those responsible accountable. Having previously contacted the UK Justice Secretary to express concerns over the honesty and integrity of the Isle of Man government, the BMA now says in its letter to Mr. Cannon that it's impossible to have faith that obligations on the disclosure of documents relating to the Dr. Ranson review will be met. The letter states Dr. Ranson has no confidence in either Mr. Wright's review or Kate Brunner KC's ongoing review into government's handling of COVID-19 and that she won't be participating in either. She did consider contributing to Ms. Brunner's review, but having learned key documents are not available to the review, she decided not to take part in what she considers to be a sham. Professor Banfield also highlighted concerns over the handling of Freedom of Information requests from Isle of Man TV relating to Dr. Ranson's COVID evidence, writing, "Your government continues to exhibit the behaviours evident in the treatment of Dr. Ranson." Dr. Ranson says she welcomes the publication of the BMA's letter and the organisation's ongoing support, adding doctors must continue to speak up when they witness wrongdoing so that patients are protected from harm. She also calls for a change in culture where doctors are able to raise concerns without becoming the focus of reprisals. Dr. Ranson was awarded a record-breaking £3.2 million payout earlier this year after proving her claim of unfair dismissal as a result of whistleblowing.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Lewis Foster, producer Amy Griffiths. After the news, Spotlight with Howie Kane.
WINT